Hello students, welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Professor Ipshita Bansal from BPS Women's University from Sonipat. Today I am going to talk about styles and process of listening from the paper Business Communication. After completing these modules, the students will be able to understand the styles of listening, learn to develop the good listening styles, and learn the stages of listening process. Listening is a skill that needs to be developed. Everyone cannot be a good listener. It requires a positive attitude. The concept behind an idea or information will not be clear with negative thoughts in mind. Positivity with proper concentration is important. Many times the mind gets exhausted and stops paying attention, which leads to incomplete listening. Poor or incomplete listening may lead to serious communication problems. It may defeat the purpose of oral communication, as too many people at the same time are interested in talking and mostly talking about self without giving patient listening to others. It contributes to difficulty to understand and retain the message. Good listening creates a positive environment and motivates the communicator. It is very important to improve the ability of listening. We need to train ourselves to listen attentively by paying attention to the spoken words and by appreciating the listening process. The possible reason in conversation which may lead to misunderstanding is the difference in the listening styles. The style of listening may be different for different people due to different reasons. Some may like the content, others may like the speaker, some will focus on the actions. The time of conversation also plays an important role. Thus, because of different preferences of diverse people, every time the good listening cannot take place, and half of the listening is converted into poor listening. So, what are the styles of listening? There are two styles of listening: poor listening styles and good listening styles. So, what are the poor listening styles? According to Stephen Covey, the biggest communication problem is most people do not listen with the intent to understand. They listen with the intent to reply. Most of the people spend more time listening to others in comparison to any other activity in the communication process. Yet, a large proportion of people never learn to listen well. Many of them think that they are good listeners, but research has confirmed the opposite. Poor listening takes place due to many distractions. One reason is that people develop poor listening habits that they continue with them throughout life. The following list contains most widespread poor listening styles. Poor listening styles. First, rehearsing thoughts. Sometimes people listen until they want to say something. As soon as the idea is generated in their mind, they quit listening and start rehearsing their thoughts. These people cannot do well in interpersonal relations, or they can't be good professionals because instead of listening, they are always waiting to get an opportunity to speak out. Second is listening only for facts. Here, The listening takes place just to know the facts and figures or the way facts are presented, and no focus is given to the actual meaning, to the basic idea which the speaker is trying to convey. This concern for facts prevents listeners to understand the importance of message and therefore leads to poor listening. Third, interrupting while listening. Listening also requires the art of being patient, because there are times when people become so impatient that they do not wait to resolute the complete meaning and interrupt the speaker in between, as they are more concerned with their own feelings or want to show off knowledge by explaining their thoughts. Fourth, listening to influence. To maintain the goodwill in the mind of the speaker, people try to influence the speaker by agreeing to what is being said by them. It is not so that they really have the same opinion and share the same thoughts or feelings, but just to please the speaker, they tend to agree in whatever is being said. In this style, the real listening does not take place, as the attention is not paid to the content. Fifth, judgmental listening. In this listening style, the listener becomes so engrossed in judging the thought of the speaker that they even do not listen to the full message. They do not try to listen or understand the idea behind, but start judging, which may lead to the interruption through comment or disagreement. Last is fake listening. It is just to pretend that you are listening, but actually you are not. People using fake listening styles do not listen to the speaker. Their mind wander here and there. Their minds are engrossed in something else, but they pretend to listen by keeping smile on their face or by nodding head again and again, as we can see in the picture below. In the figure we see the lady is talking about watering the plants. Perhaps she is asking the gentleman to do it for her. But the gentleman, on the other hand, is thinking about playing football. But at the same time, he is smiling and even perhaps nodding. So this is fake listening. In this picture, we see that the speaker is speaking, but the listener is only hearing, not listening, because we see that whatever the speaker is speaking, nothing is being retained by the listener and everything is going away. And so we can see that listener is not concentrating at all. Many people in this world are poor listeners, not only in professional but in everyday personal life also. They pretend to listen, but they are thinking about something else. This occurs even more repeatedly when people are in disagreement. Rather than cautiously listening to what the speaker has said, they are lost in thinking about their reply while the other person is talking. Despite this, they tend to infer things to correspond with their preconceived views or notions. Due to this reason, they imagine that they know and understand what the other person is trying to say. Since people in disagreement with the views of the speaker tend to build up aggressive and suspicious images of the other, vague communication is constructed in the worst possible way. Even clear messages are inclined to be misinterpreted or overlooked. Such poor listening makes good communication almost impossible. No matter how carefully the message is communicated, if the listener is not willing to receive that information in the same way, the communication will not succeed. So, what are the good listening styles? According to Wilson Misner, a good listener is not only popular everywhere, but after a while, he gets to know something. It enriches understanding and develops the capacity for empathy. Good listening is an art that can be cultivated. Practicing good listening skills helps interpersonal relations to be stronger. Good listening occurs when the listeners focus on each word and remove bias. So, how do we develop good listening styles? Good employee-employer relations start with two-way communication. Ronald Hansen, Agribusiness Program Director of University of Nebraska, Lincoln, discusses the importance of good listening skills at workplace. He states, "You should always give the person a chance to explain. Do not pass the judgment without understanding others' point of view. Do not add viewpoints or change what the other person has said. The key is about listening by being open to what the speaker is saying through words or actions. Do not permit your attention to drift away while the other person is still talking. Do not do any paperwork and not even start working at your computer. Instead, focus on the center. Never interrupt or change the subject." Hansen said that this is what I call cutting them off at the pass. Do not let your mind be closed. He says, if your attitude is set beforehand, you may as well go behind the barn and talk to a tree. Do not finish for the other person, even if he or she takes extra time to develop a thought or explain an issue. Allow them to fully express themselves. Never rehearse the response in mind. He says, when you rehearse, you are not listening to other person. They may have said something important and you missed listening. Do not rush. Never use the words like, let's finish it as I am in a hurry. Being a good listener can help in viewing the world through the eyes of others. It enriches understanding and develops the capacity for empathy. The good listening styles are the following. So, what are the strategies for developing good listening styles? First, listening with interest. Listening calls for participation and involvement. It is often a dialogue rather than a monologue. By listening carefully, good listeners put the speaker at ease. It shows others that you are interested in what they have to say. This encourages the speaker to share more and to get across the message. If in organizations the managers listen their employees with interest, it will lead to high productivity. Second, encouraging people to contribute their ideas. When people feel that what they say will be valued and not criticized, they are more likely to speak up. People with great ideas often sit silently in meetings if the environment doesn't seem supportive to them. Good listening style helps people to open up and contribute in idea generation. Third, visionary listening. Good listening is an essential part of being a good leader. One cannot be a good leader unless he or she is a good listener. Managers or leaders use this listening style to inspire people by focusing on long-term goals. Leaders listen to the values held by the individuals within the group and then explains the goals for the organization in a way that wins their support. On the other side, employees' future needs are also listened and honored to be accomplished at the workplace. Next, respecting relationships. Good listening makes people feel good and comfortable while talking. This leads to respect, trust, and a cooperative working relationship. A good listeners, even if disagree with speaker at some point, they work out constructively by respecting the given opinion and exploring the thoughts for further progress. This picture shows the importance of good listening styles. The speaker in the picture is asking, Buck, you get along with everyone. What's your secret? The other person says, nobody hates a listener. This means that if you are a good listener, everybody will like you and you will have good interpersonal relationships. Poor listening causes personal and professional problems, so it needs to be rectified. So, first, let us understand what are the reasons of poor listening. First reason is unavailability of training. Listening is a skill which is frequently used by all, but very less or no training is available for it. Since childhood, we all are trained for improving writing, reading, and speaking skills, but proper training for listening skills is never given. Even as a professional, we attend workshops, seminars, and conferences to get an opportunity to improve personal skills of writing and speaking. But still, the seminars for excelling in listening are not available. Second reason for poor listening is thoughts run like electricity. Individuals think faster than they can speak. Raman Singh states that most of us speak at the rate of about 125 words per minute. However, we have the mental capacity to understand someone speaking at 400 words per minute. The disparity between the speed of thought and speech reflects that when we listen, we just use some part of our brain while other part is free, and so it wanders somewhere else. Thus, it is important to concentrate more on listening act, otherwise it will lead to poor listening. Third reason is less retention power. Study conducted by Gail Miller at Washington State University has shown that immediately after listening to a 10 minutes oral presentation, the listener have understood and retained 50% of what was said. This way, proper listening do not take place as half of the message is lost. It is very important to shift from poor listening to good listening. Poor listening is responsible for missed business opportunities, stressed relationships and conflicts, annoyed customers, unproductive meetings, poor business decisions, and low employee motivation. On the contrary, organization with managers and staff that practice good listening skills enjoy a variety of benefits. Customer needs are satisfied and they feel appreciated. Good ideas are implemented on everything from business opportunities to solving quality problems. We are given 2 ears but only one mouth. This is because God knew that listening was twice as hard and twice as important than talking. Be a good listener. Your ears will never get you in trouble. This means that when you speak by your words, you may get into trouble, but when you are listening, you will never get into trouble. Development of good listening skills at various levels is very essential for business success. If communication within the organization has to be purposeful, people need to listen to each other attentively. Good listening skills allow the listener to gather more information more easily and to communicate more effectively. So, let us understand some techniques for developing good listening styles. First technique is attending. The first step in good listening is making the decision to listen mentally as well as physically. Good body language, eye contact, and concentrating on the speaker are essential. If you are really busy in some other task, ask the speaker to come back after some time when you can give your full attention. Second technique is appropriate silence and supporting statements. Do not interrupt the speaker till he finishes. However, it is important to make encouraging, positive sounds and gestures to make the speaker comfortable. Third technique is asking questions. Respond to a speaker with a question when it is relevant, but don't shift your attention somewhere else. Also, be careful not to judge the speaker in the middle of the conversation, or not to stop him or her in the middle of the statement. Good and open-ended questions come out by good listening. Fourth technique is rephrasing. Rephrasing helps ensure that listeners have understood what has been said once a speaker has finished to respond, as it will increase the retention power and the points will be remembered for a long period of time. Good listening skills are particularly relevant in dealing with customer complaints and employee grievances. Business-related issues will be resolved properly by improving on listening skills. Fifth technique is listening with an open mind. Mind is like an umbrella. It works only when it is open. Listeners have to forget their biases and prejudices and grasp new ideas even though they may conflict with theirs. The new ideas may change us a bit. Accept the change, for it may be for the better. The sixth technique is reading between the lines. Good listening means reading between the lines, that is, sensing the implications of the message. Good listeners analyze speakers' choice of words and phrases, observe their postures, facial expressions, tone and pitch of voice, manners, general appearances, etc., and then only assign meaning to what has been said. Seventh technique is empathizing. As a manager, if employees come to you with a problem, they may be looking only for an understanding rather than finding a solution. Here, the empathetic listening is required to realize the speaker's thoughts and emotions. A good listener will help by being patient and valuing the words of speaker. Thus, people at their personal and professional life need to increase their ability to communicate well, as good listening is very much required in businesses. As poor listening can not only cause the person his career, but a severe impact on business by loss of customers. Losing customer is losing business. Good listening, therefore, is very important to both internal as well as external customers. Service industry such as banking and financial services involve person-to-person interactions. These organizations are making relentless efforts to know customer requirements and respond by actively and sincerely listening to them. Organizations which make conscious effort in this regard are described as listening organizations. Let's now understand the process of listening. Listening is a difficult process. It does not take much effort to lose track of what the sender is trying to communicate. Good listening is required to properly complete the listening process. If poor listening takes place, it reduces the retention capacity and sender does not receive proper response. The body language at the time of listening should also be conducive to the communication process. It is important for the listener to listen accurately and respond, as listening is often a dialogue rather than a monologue. As International Listening Association provides the definition of listening in the following manner. Listening is a process of receiving, constructing meaning from, and responding to spoken and on non-verbal messages. The steps in the listening process are as follows. So, let's understand at a glance the steps in the listening process. First step is receiving the message or sensing the message. Second, decoding the message. Third, interpreting the message. Fourth, remembering the message. Fifth, evaluating what was said. And sixth and the last, responding to the message. Let's now consider in detail the steps in the listening process. First, receiving and sensing. The listening process begins with receiving the message. For this purpose, thoughtfulness and focus on the words and action is required. As soon as the message is received by the listener, it goes to our sensory world, that is, to our senses. Through sound wave, it enters our ears and then to the brain. However, it depends on our mind whether to grasp sound or not. If there are various sounds in the environment at the same time, our brain may choose to respond only to a few sounds. Second step, decoding. The process of decoding begins as soon as our mind captures the message. Decoding takes place as a conscious exercise. If the sender has been careful, decoding will be an easy task for the receiver. The message received is considered useful or useless. Filtering begins here. Receiver retains that part of the message which makes sense to him and discard the rest. Third step is interpreting or comprehending. At this stage, filtered message is assigned a meaning. Unless the person is very specific while coding the message, the meaning may differ if it is not similar from person to person. According to one's own perceptions, people comprehend or understand the message. This activity may also be described as absorbing or interpreting, as the listener has not only used body but also intellect in grasping the meaning of the message. Fourth step is remembering. This is another important step of listening process. Some part of the conversation is retained and some forgotten. Very less percent is stored for a longer time. This is a very critical step, as messages received are meant a lot, not just for instantaneous thoughtfulness and action, but also for future use. Remembering is a stage where the interpreted message is stored in memory for prospect recall. Fifth step is evaluating. Listener here evaluates or reflects the message which was conveyed by the speaker. At this stage, many questions comes in mind of the listener. and he decides to critically analyze the message sent by the speaker. Sixth step is responding. Response of the listener may take place at the end or even in the mid of the communication. Response occurs earlier if the listener asks questions to clarify the doubts and to empathize with the speaker, or if it is intended to just provide feedback to the sender. Response occurs towards the end. This is the stage where receivers will probably try to consider the statement with their own expectations. If there is harmony between the two, the response will be well prepared and helpful for everyone's growth. It is necessary that the process of listening does not break down, because if this happens, communication will not be effective. The speakers should not ignore the listening process, as the effective delivery of speaker affects the receiver's listening capabilities. In this process, there is a constant interaction between the listener and the speaker through the feedback provided in verbal and non-verbal way. The difference between poor and good listening is given below. Poor listener avoid dry subjects. Good listener finds out opportunities to learn. Poor listener do not listen if delivery is poor. Good listener grasps content and skips delivery error. Poor listener enters into argument with the speaker. Good listener interrupts only to clarify. Poor listener listens only for facts. Good listener listens for the central theme. Poor listener fakes attention. Good listener actively is involved in listening. Poor listener is distracted easily. Good listener fights distractions. Poor listener reacts to emotional words. Good listener interprets emotional words. So students, let's now summarize what we have learned in this module. Listening process has two important components. First, of decoding the message, and second, responding to it. Correctly listening to the message and giving the right feedback is an essential part of communication which completes the process. Listening is the insight of what is being communicated. Because of the different perceptions of individuals, the understanding of the message may also differ. Good listening builds the strong bonds and results in achievement of communication goals, whereas poor listening leads to misunderstandings and loss. Thank you.